I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Shattered is over. Forget Mexico. I've got a better idea. It's more sinister, I think. Makes it crazier. More sinister. We're doing Shattered. Andy, what a movie.
We are here. So, for this season, when we were picking movies, I strategically picked all movies I had never seen, which this series that I wanted to return to, which is the spoiled, rotten twist endings, which is like, once you've seen it, can you return to the film and will it be spoiled for you, or will it be rotten now because the twist is spoiled? Like, does the twist hold up? Essentially, is the whole premise of this series. And watching these for the first time, it's hard to actually say that, but I can speculate. Like, how do I think that this would fare on rewatch? That's kind of what we're doing with this particular return to the series. And this was one of them that I was curious about. I'd heard things about it. I remember it coming out. I remember the trailer with the visuals of the body kind of crashing through a windshield and like very artistic images. It was an interesting film. Wolfgang Petersen's a director that I've generally always liked. And so, this was one that I wanted to add to the list and finally check this film off my list.
I had never seen it. I'd never heard of it. I don't remember seeing the trailer. This was a completely new experience for me from jump.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
It is.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
We should just,
I don't know, where do you want to start?
Well, we should just let people know this series, I mean, in general, you should know, watch the movie before tuning into our show because we do spoil them. This particular series, though, I mean, it's all about the twist endings, and we are certainly spoiling those. So check out the film before you tune into this episode.
Then let's do this first. How about we do this first? Without saying anything about the movie, let's just say, is this movie rotten if spoiled?
Well,
what is your vote?
Well, but I think that I don't think the movie is rotten if spoiled. I do think, like, replaying the movie in my head after watching it, I think that, because I always look for those moments where would a character act that way? Like, are they acting the way that they would if they were alone, or are they acting that way alone because there's a film camera pointed at them and they have to be acting this particular way for the audience to kind of buy with what, go along with what they're doing. I think mostly it works. I think that there are a few things that Greta Scacchi's character may be up to that you may, have a harder time with. But largely, I think I can see this story playing out still okay after knowing what the twist is at the end.
I think I'm a little bit more bearish on the second time experience. I after watching the movie, after knowing how it plays out, I think it's a lot of fun. And I think it would be like most of that fun is rooted in figuring out the next twist. It is a telenovela level, like, dramatic twists. And I loved my experience while watching it. I think if you had told me this is how it's going to play out, I may have put it down on my list. I don't think I'd have watched it quite so urgently.
Well, and I can see that, but I think because this film does play so over the top, and I mean, it's kind of like this ultra, I mean, campy is not the right word, but it's serious. It's taking its over the topness pretty seriously.
Yes.
Which makes it like, it fits into kind of like this vibe of these 90s thrillers. I think it fit in pretty well. And because of that element where it just seemed a little more, soap opera, I guess, as you said, telenovela, like there is this element to it that I think makes it work because it does feel everything is just a little bigger,
Yes. Yeah, totally. So in that regard, I mean, take that was not a real definitive warning, but I would suggest don't listen to us right now. Like, stop listening right now. You will have more
Watch the
fun
film,
if you actually watch the movie first. That's
I
my
do
vote.
agree with that. I do agree with
Okay.
that. To that end, well, okay, so let's now do initial thoughts, but then I want to have a conversation about like how we did as far as figuring things out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first initial thoughts. I mean, it sounds like you enjoyed it. The characters and everything, you kind of went along with the craziness of the story?
Well, I feel like when I've been working on my Letterboxd review, and I think you're going to read a review that is full of the exuberance of a 5-star 3-heart movie. And I had such a blast. My final rating is not that high, but I loved my time with it. I was talking to it out loud. I was like, this hit me at just the right moment. It is so funny in so many unintentionally like funny. The twists are so funny. And Tom Berenger is so lost around every corner. Like I had a blast watching the movie. I had a blast watching the movie. That does not indicate how good of a movie it is, but it knew what it wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was with the film. And that's why I feel like it could hold up as a rewatch, knowing knowing all the places it's going to go, because it is just so over the top and like goofy fun. Like I had a lot of fun with this movie. It was such a strange little 90s thriller, and it really worked for me. And if you're not, it is one of those films where if you're not on its wavelength, or if you're looking for something that's actually taking itself seriously, I think you are really not going to have a fun time with it. But if you're able to just kind of go along with this sort of movie, I think you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's a trip through time. It loses a heart or a star completely because the parrot didn't end up on Bob Hoskins' shoulder the whole time. Like that parrot was a winner, and I needed more parrot. Anyway, we'll get to that.
We'll get to Bob Hoskins and his crazy jobs.
So figuring it out. How'd you do figuring it out?
So this is the sort of movie, and we're definitely going to start jumping into spoiler territory here. Right away, we've got this car crash, this crazy car crash. Like, I mean, in our pre-show chat for our members, we were talking about some, great car crashes on film. This, I think, would be one of them. I mean, this was a crazy, crazy car crash. And man, that car got so pancaked that I was amazed that there was any semblance of a human left inside when he was in the hospital. I'm like, there's no space for a person in there once it's done. But so once I saw that, okay, he's got amnesia and he's getting facial reconstructive surgery, my mind instantly said, oh, I wonder who he used to be before he started looking like Tom Berenger. Like, really? I instantly said that. Well, because I'm used to, that was a kind of this element that they would do in these old Hollywood movies.
Yeah.
Like, what's the one where Humphrey Bogart gets facially reconstructive surgery to look like Humphrey Bogart as part of his criminal plot? I can't remember the movie, but... And, we're going to be talking on an upcoming Movies We Like episode about Thunderball. And that's a plot element in that one where they're taking somebody and making him look like a totally different person. And so I guess that was just where my head went. I stopped thinking about it after a while. And so I lost that thread. But I guess by the time that we get to the point where... because it was fun because he is trying to figure out what the hell happened, and I started going, okay, so did he actually kill this other guy? And then when we see the head in the boat, I'm like, oh, okay, I had been right. If I had just stayed on that initial thread, I would have been able to figure it all out. But so I never quite figured it out until I saw the head, but I had those inklings. I didn't follow through.
I think it'd be probably gracious to say I was behind you. I figured out the movie with great confidence 3 times and was wrong every time. Like I fell for every clue.
Yeah.
Like I knew they were playing me. I just could never quite put my finger on it until I think it was pretty close to the ultimate reveal. It was like before Hoskins came for his final, like, I'm gonna arrest you bit. Like I think right before that I was like, oh, okay, I think I see what's going on here. I missed the whole part about the facial reconstruction. Like that should have been key, and I missed it. So I knew that she was obviously there was something, she was taking advantage of him somehow. There was something going on where she was trying to get him killed. Like I figured out all of that part with the exception of the fact that they were different people, and that's pretty key. So
yeah. Well, and I think maybe one of the things that left me shifting away from that early on is, I mean, for somebody who's having massive facial reconstructive surgery, like he has nary a scar. Like there's hardly a mark left on his body when he's healed. And so I think that's why I let go of that idea fairly early on, because Tom Berenger just looked so Tom Berenger. You know, it didn't look like Tom Berenger, but there were still some funny scars on his face that would come up later in the story, you know?
They needed him to look really good like Tom Berenger for the story to work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, I mean, there were enough fun twists, and I really enjoyed when they brought Bob Hoskins in to help us kind of narrate it for ourselves, right? To help the audience, point out the key clues and resolve the story. I liked both of the women, their motivations. The Corbin Burnson relationship was funny, though underplayed. Like I think there could have been more of a trick in the middle of the movie to demonstrate Burnson's role. And
he disappears.
He disappears.
He hit a certain point in the film, and he's just not there the rest of the time. Which I was like, oh, that was. I agree with you. Like they could have found a way to extend that and thread him through a little more through the rest of the film. I think that you could have had another great red herring that could have led us down a different path.
Yeah. So I guess, now we're getting into some film details, but that's me. I didn't figure it out until way too late, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by that. The movie played me. As a movie lover, I should have figured it out sooner.
Well, but I think that's why I find it to be a fun film, because they are doing they're playing along with what we want in a film like this, with these pretty unbelievable sorts of tropes and everything that we have going throughout the story. Like the fact that this person has amnesia, so convenient for his wife to use that to her advantage, right?
Yeah.
And like that, it is so interesting to see how she effectively used that to her advantage in that brief window of time that she had to actually put those puzzle pieces together to figure out, okay, what can I do here, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like
in hours, as she describes it, she had hours, more than that, because she was, a criminal.
Yeah. Right.
But, I think that's really it, that his amnesia is quite specific for the plot. Right. And the fact that he remembers so much about his life before the accident and nothing in there relates to his identity is it's hard. It's hard for me to believe that he could be played quite so thoroughly.
Well, right, because remembering your life before the accident, then it should be like, well, then why does he not remember ever working at that place with Jeb, right?
Yeah,
like he has no recollection of any of that or the type of work he did. He doesn't remember, I don't know, just like there's really nothing that he remembers. And it's like, he should be remembering a whole different set of things. And all he really remembers, like it's they say it's a specific amnesia, but it really seems like a complete wipe amnesia. And the only thing that he really has are hallucinatory images of rolling around having sex in the waves. Like that's kind of
was
the one memory.
If you're going
that
to
he
remember
has.
something, Andy.
Hey, yeah, I know, right?
So here's the thing about that amnesia, because they call it psychogenic amnesia, and psychogenic
Correct.
amnesia is a thing, and or it's sometimes called dissociative amnesia or functional amnesia, and it is the sudden loss of autobiographical memory and personal identity, and it is commonly precipitated by a traumatic event, severe stress, or depression. Individuals are often unaware of their previous lives and unconcerned about their amnesic condition.
Oh, that's interesting.
So this is one of those things, right, where it's a true thing. What they are depicting, hell, it may be a documentary for all I know, but because of the context of this movie, it feels unbelievable or circumspect while I'm watching it, right? Like,
well,
it feels fake.
but I'm glad that you described it, because for some reason in my head, I was thinking that it was amnesia. Whatever they described it as, I thought it was amnesia from the point of the accident forward, but it's really everything. It's
no, that's Guy Pearce amnesia.
Yeah, it is a wipe of everything. Yeah, okay. So that actually, it works.
So
I think it works.
That is, so you can't recall personal information, and it is highly, highly disputed and controversial diagnosis, apparently because it feels fake to some other people too.
Yeah, right.
Like if I just suddenly can't remember who I am or that I know how to podcast, you would think that's crazy.
And the fact that you don't worry too much about it. You're like, okay. Yeah, like that makes it seem like you're just faking it.
It does.
Yeah.
Maybe. So that's the deal. But there is a funny moment in the movie where he goes back to work. He's an architect, right? He's an architect. He goes back to work, and at some point he does some architecty things at this big development shop, right? And then we have the scene where he comes to work like another day later, and Bernson's sitting at his desk going through his stuff, and he says something like, we should talk about what you're working on. What it tells me is, I don't know if you remember how to architect things anymore. And so we should talk about that. When that's a funny clue, because he's not an architect. He was never an architect.
Yeah. My favorite bit when he comes back to work, he's talking to his secretary, and he's just like, "Did we ever get together?" Like he's like somewhat convinced, like I must have had an affair with my secretary because the way she looks at me. It was a weird moment that, I don't know, made me laugh quite a bit.
Totally, because that's like there are so many of those like mood MacGuffins, right? Were we supposed to think more about the secretary? No, we weren't. She was in it for a little bit.
But it was interesting because I looked at the secretary. I actually wrote in my notes, I'm like, okay, there is almost a hint that she looks like she could play as a Greta Scacchi lookalike.
Totally.
If they needed that
100%.
somewhere else in the film. So I was thinking, okay, she is somehow involved, and she was playing Greta's character, Judith. And like, so I was going down that road of looking for twists.
Yeah. Absolutely. I thought that was fascinating. She's only in like 2 scenes, maybe 3, and then she's gone. So that's a wipe. We don't need to worry about her. Again, Corbin Burns is gone. What was the other one? Oh, there was the I did love, and I did not go into my usual level of detail on this, but I did love that Bob Hoskins, as long as we're in his office, pulls out the typeface of the fax machine. And that he and the secretary had a discussion about how much she loves that particular typeface, Regal Premier or something like that, on that fax machine, and she's the only one who loves it, and that's why that fax machine became important.
Yeah,
I mean,
weird,
setting
weird
up the pieces.
Weird little beat, but again, it's the sort of weird like Sherlock Holmes detail that kind of makes you go, okay, I can buy Gus as this crazy pet shop owner by day, detective by night sort of role that they wrote for him. It was the strangest character combination, but I just loved everything about Bob Hoskins in this film. He was just, it was such a strange world they created for this character to inhabit, and I loved every piece of it.
Do you know why? Because you're absolutely right. It's so strange. And yet the way he sets it up, the way he talks about it is totally believable. That he was a private detective for 30 years and he fell out of love with the human race. And so now he runs a pet store foster kind of operation and loves animals more than people. I bought that. Like that's a rich character that they were able to give me on screen very efficiently. Like that we didn't need to belabor too much of that. We figured out who he was very quickly and his role in this thing and his just innate curiosity it paid off. Everything paid off about Hoskins' character. I loved his character in this movie.
Yeah. Even as unbelievable as it was, the fact that then he gets shot toward the end, he falls into the water, presumably either dies by gunshot or drowns. But no, he is able to breathe underwater with his inhaler, his asthma inhaler. That
albuterol.
I don't think that albuterol inhaler.
I need to ask the internet. Can you breathe underwater with
how much oxygen is actually in one pump of albuterol? That was so crazy.
What? Oh, so yes, you can use your albuterol inhaler before scuba diving if your asthma is well controlled, but you should avoid diving for 48 hours after using a rescue inhaler. So I'm going to say probably not.
That was a good laugh, man.
Yeah,
I chuckled.
That was pretty good. I just, they're not sealed. You put them around your mouth. They're still they're not sealed. For those who haven't used albuterol inhalers.
Yeah, please don't use this film as proof that you can go diving with an albuterol inhaler.
So good.
Oh man.
Yeah. So there are some things that are truly ridiculous in this movie, and yet the universe of the movie, and that's the roller coaster. Some things like his character setup are they're so good, and some things like how he survives at the end and how spry he is running across that gangplank to get to Dan. Really, unbelievable.
Yeah, but it was. By that point in the film, like I had just gone along with everything else. I'm like, whatever in this crazy world. Sure, go ahead. And then they hop in the helicopter together, and they may as well have said, "This looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Like it feels like that's where we're going with this whole thing. Oh my gosh, so funny.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about Jenny, Joanne Wally's character.
Yeah. This is Jeb's wife, Corbin Burnson's wife. Yeah. And he is kind of like, both men, as we find out, are kind of abusive asses. Like neither of them are great guys. The only reason Dan, Tom Berenger's character, happens to be kind of a great guy in the film is because we find out, with the big twist later that, that's the reason that he's not necessarily as abusive right now. But Jenny has put up with it, but she's also really into horoscopes. And as we find out, has been having an affair with Dan.
Yeah. So she's kind of an interesting character because I actually bought into her daffiness as another thing I'm not supposed to follow all that hard. And so I didn't pay much attention to her for most of the movie until it comes out that they've been having an affair and that there's another layer to this thing. But in fact, she's been having an affair with the dead version of him. And it's very confusing.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted there to be some realization where she's like kissing him or something. And it's like, you don't taste the same or something like that. You know what I mean? Like there's some realization that she recognizes before everybody else because of the affair. That would have been a nice twist.
Yeah. Well, and she does, right? Like that's why she gets killed. That's why Judith kills her. because of, well, I can't remember what it was, like a birthmark or a scar or something. Not a scar. I mean, he's got a gazillion scars now, or a tattoo or something it was something on his hand. I just can't remember what it was, but
that
she has that she has that moment where it was because she could read his palms, and when she went to look at the lines on his hand, she noticed that they were different, and that's why Judith kills her. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, let's just think long term fingerprints. Are we going to resolve that? No, we're not going to talk about that right now. So anyway, yeah, she figures it out, and that's why she dies. I think I really liked her character. I sort of wish there was a little bit more of her in here. It felt like she was told, we were told that she figured it out.
Yeah,
and then she was dead.
Right, like that's all that happens. Like they have that moment on the beach, and when he comes back later, she's just dead. And so I also could have used like another scene or two with her just to kind of play that out a little better as far as the way that was developing, you know?
Right.
But I like her, and that's like like I agree with you. Like there is this daffy quality to the fact that she's into horoscopes and signs and all of these sorts of things, and it worked for me that like I could buy that Corbin Burnson would fall for her, but then also be sick of her. And like it played well. Like their relationship played, the affair played, like everything about that character I thought worked. It made sense for me in the film.
Oh yeah, me too. I think I think everything about their relationship in the context of the soap opera that it is was fantastic. And if anything, I just wanted more. And so I guess that takes us to Greta Scacchi. Like you said, there are some things about her behavior that didn't feel quite earned.
Well, yeah, it's that, and this is one of those moments like when a character is by themselves in a film and they know that there's something going on. Like I always on rewatches, I'm always looking, I'm like, okay, if that person knows that all of this has been faked and they are actually the guilty party, why are they acting, scared at this particular moment or surprised or shocked at this particular moment? Like I struggle with those sorts of elements in a film because it's like, well, that wouldn't happen because they are the guilty party. Like we just talked about this recently in Grand Slam when we were talking about Janet Leigh's character and some of the moments she was alone, knowing her role in everything that had been going on, but then why is she acting the way she is when she's alone? And so I struggle with those sorts of moments. And there are a couple of those moments with Greta in this film. And I'm trying to remember exactly what they were.
Well, but there's one significant one that I feel like wasn't resolved, at least to my satisfaction, which is at the very end. She drives up to the hotel in the white Mercedes. She goes inside, she changes her clothes and puts on a disguise to look like the other guy, Stanton. Yes. Goes out the back, gets in the red Porsche, and then comes around the block and drives up again to get out of the red Porsche.
Right. At the house.
How did she know that they were watching the hotel?
Yeah.
That was a very elaborate switcheroo for her to set up and go park the Mercedes there without being said. How did she know they were watching at that moment and not at the moment where she drove the Porsche to hide it in the bushes? Like, how did she know that? And that sort of those moments of implausibility are the things that make the rewatch of the movie less satisfying.
Yeah. Right. Because you're like, well, does she have her own detective that is keeping her updated? Is she just a skilled detective on her own? Yeah, like you start wondering about like those sorts of things. And I guess part of that is you've seen enough movies where when people are being followed, it's kind of almost like a 50-50 at this point in any movie where someone's being followed, where you're like, 50-50 chance that they know they're being followed or they don't know they're being followed, because we've seen it play out both ways over and over again. So your mind is already going, well, she probably knows. Well, she might not. But it's like, it's just one of those things where it's hard to really be convinced one way or the other, because movies so easily can just say, I knew all along, or I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just such an easy out to have somebody getting followed and surprise, we knew.
Well, and devil's advocacy for the film, like there is the constraint of making a movie is that you're really gonna show, like, we don't really know how long Berenger and Hoskins were sitting in the car. Maybe they were there for 9 hours waiting for a thing, but he had gotten that clue. Like, she set up that clue by sending the telegram to say, I'm going to be there at 5:00. So now that I say all that, I realize the telegram was in play. Maybe that's enough. Is that enough? I don't know. It seems like a really big switcheroo, but it's well thought out. Like it's well thought out. The movie showed us the parts of time that make the narrative work, and so it's fine. I was on the ride at that point anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is like, you know what, you've got me. I'm here. I'm on the ride. I'm not going to worry too much about little things like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and I guess in the scope of Judith as the essentially our antagonist of the story here, I think that it plays where by the time we get to the end and the switches and everything, and we really understand the full extent of where the story is taking us, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see that this was a plan that she put into place. I mean, she knows that it's Jack that she's with, and that's why she panics when she finds out that Dan said, oh, I didn't want that wreck to be destroyed. Well, I didn't want the wreck to be, I can't remember. They were going to tow it
out to sea and
and then sink it. And he said, I don't want it. I said to cancel that because he felt, he had followed her one night out to that shipwreck. And so he's like, I feel like there's something with my past there. And so I don't want that destroyed. And she has that huge panic moment, like, oh my God, what are you, crazy? And then she's like, let's just run off to Mexico. Like, there were a lot of those beats with her that, like, I just liked the way that her character was portrayed, because you can buy into this mania that she has in trying to figure out how to get out of all of this. You know, she's convinced everybody, including her lover, that Dan is alive, and essentially they're going to make off with all of his fortunes now, and everything is hunky-dory, except the fact that Dan keeps screwing things up, right? He's and like, that's why it plays so well. And so all of these moments with her, like, I thought Greta Scacchi was great as the antagonist of the film. Like, she seems like the loving wife who's trying to help her husband, but the twists and turns worked enough for me to kind of buy into where we end up by the time we get to the end of the film.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I thought she was fascinating, and I guess there aren't so many of those moments as I'm thinking in retrospect, that I was testing her that I think would suck on rewatch, because I think she plays it like she plays the twist. She was, and just to be clear, she was going to kill the guy.
Jack?
Yeah.
I think that she was going to kill... Well, she was going to kill Jack as Jack.
As Jack.
And then when everything...
She's not a good person, but maybe this whole event could have turned her around. Like, maybe had he just stopped trying to figure out who he was,
right?
Maybe she would have turned a new leaf and they could have lived a wonderful life together in Mexico.
Yeah. I mean, with all of the money that they had, I mean, absolutely. So,
and that's the fun twist for thinking about this movie, is that if they had just stopped, if he had just stopped, this would be a non-movie, because she would have won. She would have gotten everything she wants on an accident, because he wasn't supposed to survive, and she would have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
And ultimately what ends up happening is, I think it's safe to say that he takes on the role of Dan and just stays as Dan.
Yeah. Well, I think we absolutely buy that, because Gus knows what
Yeah.
what happened. And the fact that at the end, Gus says, come on, Dan. I mean, he may as well wink and like elbow him in the ribs when he calls him Dan. It's like, I know who you are, you. And because now Dan has all this money. I think that's the whole game at the end of the film, is that he's now this rich architect. So it's interesting.
And he's going to be bought out, because that was the last thing that Bernson had said. We're going to set up a time. We're going to talk about our partner buyout. So you're going to get even more money, and you're going to be done. You can just retire. This whole thing was a retirement plan.
Yeah.
This sounds great.
Stop screwing up my want to go pollute the ocean.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Corbin says in that conversation.
Put the formaldehyde in the ocean. Yeah. What is that? Is that how you carry formaldehyde on the sea? Like, it's just in these big rusty vats. That's it. For those who haven't seen the movie, you should have seen the movie. But the acid, it's a toxic chemical vault in this in this ship, and that's where they dump the body. That's where she dumps the body of Jack, and it turns out she dumps the body in formaldehyde.
She's assuming that it's going to dissolve the body like it's some form of acid, but she just puts it in formaldehyde and preserves it. That was one of the funniest reveals.
And when he pulls the head up, it really does look kind of like pickled, like preserved like a pickle. It's so gross.
Oh man, so funny.
Yeah.
Going through their characters, we haven't really talked about Tom Berenger much. It's a great reunion for him and Corbin Bernson. We talked about Major League way early in the show, I think first season actually, and first or second at least. And then after this, they will return together to do Major League 2. And then we've talked about, some spattering of Christopher Nolan films where Tom Berenger, has a bit part, like Inception, things like that.
Big Chill.
I generally... Big Chill, we talked about in movies we like. Yep.
Did we do Platoon?
We haven't done... Oh, yeah, we did Platoon in our Oliver Stone in the 80s series. That's right.
Yep.
So I really like Tom Berenger. I've always... Like, this era in particular, like, I feel like I was just like every other movie I was watching had Tom Berenger in it. He was just in everything. And I enjoy him quite a bit as this lost person trying to figure out who he is and everything. Like, he played it well for me. What did you think of Berenger?
Yeah, and when you get it is when we have there's like the flashback when she's telling the real story, or it's all coming back to him where he is, because he's told multiple times, you've changed, man. You were a jerk before, and now you're nice. And this is when you see him call her out and say, I'm going to get you, and she backs away from him and gun goes off and she shoots him like that. You get to see why Tom Berenger is great for this part, because he is over the top menacing in just the same way that he's over the top kind of innocent. And most of the movie he's playing that sort of new babe innocence, and I think he gets away with it, but partially it's because the guy can turn on a dime.
Yeah. He's a lot of fun in this role. I think he brings, as he starts figuring things out, there's a little bit of a sense of that intense menace that he can bring. And I thought he was great in it. Yeah, interestingly, William Hurt was attached to star in this before Tom Berenger ended up taking the role. And Bruce Willis was offered the role, but had turned it down. Likewise, Nicole Kidman actually tested for the role of Judith before Greta Scacchi got the part. Some interesting alternate versions of the film with those other actors in it.
That's so funny. Like, you could do all of the men in the Big Chill cast. So Tom Berenger, William Hurt. I could honestly see Kevin Kline.
Could you do Goldblum?
I could see Goldblum pulling it off in the 90s. You bet. Yeah. That's really funny. Costner? This could have been a Costner joint.
This could have been, honestly. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Great little bunch. Yeah.
It's got the vibe, it's got this real sort of noir vibe. What'd you think of the camera and light?
Well, I think Wolfgang Petersen, generally when he's directing, I think he works well with his, with the camera department to craft the films to have the right look. Like, just, we've talked about Das Boot on this show, and just the intense kind of the contrasty light inside the submarine and how dark and tight the spaces are. I think he just captured that so perfectly. Here, I think that the film, I mean, great fog shots in the road and everything, like some wonderful moments that we have throughout the film. And I think that Laszlo Kovacs as the DP clearly is having fun when Wolfgang says, I need some dream sequences and some hallucinatory memories and things like that. Like, I just loved, and I remember from the trailer, like the charred body like smashing through a windshield, like that moment that we see over and over again.
Yeah,
and
Petersen loved that too.
He played it quite a bit, didn't he? But like, I loved those moments. Like, it really gives you the sense of the internal brokenness of this man. I really enjoyed all of that. So I think largely, I think the work plays really nicely throughout the film.
That the signature sort of sequence for camera for me is the crash itself. I think the choice to be locked on the underside of the embankment that they're about to crash through and play sound of the car coming up the hill, but you can't see them in the beginning, and then the car crashes through the barrier over you is fantastic. Then clearly a substantial rig was created to toss that car around and shoot interior of the car as that body is like floating. There are sequences where the body is floating and the car's turning around it. Like, it's so cool how they managed to shake up that car. It is an extraordinary crash, and it's filmed just really, really well. That one is a highlight for me in the movie, apart from just the general mood, which is all very, very good.
For the car crash, they had a custom built system that had a compressed gas thrust of 1,400 pounds, which sent the Mercedes 560 SL sailing 200 feet off a cliff before it fell more than 500 feet. Recording the action, they had 6 cameras, several manned by rope-secured technicians experienced in climbing rock faces to get into pivotal positions. Camera crews lowered down the cliff had to be put in place with their equipment by a heavy-duty helicopter capable of lifting 2,000 pounds. Yeah. God. So they did everything they could to get that shot in with lots of different angles, and it paid off in dividends. Yeah, really works really well.
It really, really did. That's great. Which actually implies that wasn't. I mean, what, they put a stunt person in that car and throw him down a mountain?
I don't think. I think it was a dummy, is what they had in there. Yeah,
got to be a dummy, of course.
Yeah. And then I did laugh later in the film when he and Judith decide to go back to the crash site and just scale down the side of the mountain. I'm like, does this guy not have PTSD about anything? Like, here he is, like going down in a cane to go look at the car wreck, which they left there. I was like, oh boy, okay.
And I like how she stays up top and just yells, "Be careful!"
Yeah, right.
Music.
Yeah. Alan Silvestri, this is the first of 2 films where he came on late in the film to replace a score done by Angelo Badalamenti. This is the second one we've also talked about on this show, and we also talked about it in this very series, in our Spoiled Rotten Twist Ending series. It was Identity. That was the other film Badalamenti wrote the score for, and then they said, nope. And Alan Silvestri came in last minute to write a new score. I think that is a strange bit of coincidence.
That's crazy. What were the years of those?
2003 for that one. So
for
12
Identity.
years apart. Yeah.
12 years apart. I wonder if they're buds.
I'm always curious to see how replaced scores play, because sometimes when a film tests poorly, the first thing that they'll do is just write a new score for it and see if it will play better. And I wonder if it just got bad test ratings and that's why they did it. There have been a number of instances where unused scores have been released on CD, and I don't think that either of these Badalamenti scores have ever been released, which is a shame. I'd really love to hear how they played. I'd be curious to see if they're still enjoyable things to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, or it's just, long passages of plucked cello. It's possible that it's just plucked cello.
It's possible. We'll just never know. We'll never know.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else hot?
Just a little interesting side note. This is, we talked about Tom Berenger and Corbin Burnson coming back together. This was also a reunion of sorts for Bob Hoskins and Joanne Whaley. They were both in Pink Floyd's The Wall. He was the rock and roll manager, and she was a groupie in that film.
Well,
look at that.
That's adorable. Do you think they knew each other? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, right. Were they buddy on the set?
Yeah, right.
Who knows? Yeah.
Well, this plays as a fantastic entry into the whole psychological thriller oeuvre that was like we were kind of getting hammered with in the 90s. It feels great. I'm so glad we watched it. I don't know that I need to watch it again because, again, I get it. I know where it's going now. Is it spoiled rotten? No, but it's definitely spoiled.
Yeah. I don't think I think I would have a lot of fun with this in the scope of Wolfgang Petersen films that I would handily return to. I'm like, yeah, this would be a fun one to kind of if I'm in the right mood, like I can totally see sitting down and going through this one again. Like it's just, it's kind of that goofy sort of fun.
Totally. And super fun introducing it to someone else who hasn't seen it. That's one of the great joys of the Spoiled Rotten series is they're all, even if you were spoiled, they're really fun to sit around with somebody who hasn't seen it and watch them get spoiled rotten.
Yeah, exactly. Just last note, we didn't mention, but this was based on a novel by Richard Neely called The Plastic Nightmare, which it's a very funny title.
I wonder if it's still around in print.
You can still buy it as a pairing of two Richard Neely stories, The Plastic Nightmare paired with While Love Lay Dying. So I've never read any of his. He only wrote 15 novels, 3 of which were turned into movies.
He only wrote 15 novels.
I know.
Did you hear yourself?
I know. Well, I'm just saying that because we just talked about Donald E. Westlake in our last series, who wrote hundreds.
4,000.
Yeah, right. Like never stopped. I don't know what the other Richard Neely adaptations were. Now I'm going to have to go into that and see here. Richard Neely also wrote the book The Damned Innocents that was turned into Dirty Hands in 1975. And he wrote the novel The Sexton Women, which was adapted into a TV movie, looks like in Japan, Chichigoroshi no Haushu in 1982. So those are the 3 adaptations of his works.
You cannot find them in digital in anything. Like they're just not available in my library. Like in Libby, probably means they're largely out of print.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Did you look on Amazon? I'm curious, like Richard Neely. That one book, like Shattered, you can still get in paperback for $3 or so. So, and The Plastic Nightmare / While Love Lay Dying, you can get on Kindle.
Oh, okay.
So that one is still
just
available.
No demand for it at my library. God, my library. What's going on in my community? I need better readers.
I tell you.
Come on, people. Come on, Rock Creek area.
Yeah, I tell you.
Let's get to some of those classics.
Yeah. Just as far as these adaptations, it's interesting that one was a French adaptation, one was a Japanese, and this is the only American adaptation. I wonder what that says about Richard Neely's popularity. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, you wonder if he was canceled somehow. We don't even know.
We don't even know.
We shouldn't even be talking about him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that back.
All right, we'll be right back, but first, our credits.
All right, is this me? No, it's you.
Well, you got to do the credits first.
Right. I'm going to do the credits first. The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Mona Type, Fable Fort, Piotr Hummel, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all of the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Now it's you.
It's me.
You.
Who talks first? All right. Let me figure out where I put it. Where are you? Okay, here you go. You wake up in a hospital bed, your face wrapped in bandages, your memory shattered like a windshield in a brutal car crash. You can't remember anything about your past or your loved ones, and you feel a strange emptiness inside, as if a crucial part of your identity is missing. As you begin to recover, you stumble upon Letterboxd, a vibrant community of film lovers. The passion and enthusiasm of the members draw you in, and you start to explore the site with a free account, gaining access to unlimited films, diary entries, reviews, ratings, and lists. You catch a glimpse of a world you once knew, a world filled with the magic of cinema. Intrigued by this newfound connection, you delve deeper into the features of Letterboxd. You discover that for just $19 a year, less than the cost of a monthly movie night, you can upgrade to a Letterboxd Pro and unlock a whole new level of cinematic exploration. With Pro, you'll be living the ad-free life with personalized stats pages that showcase your growing expertise. You can filter by your favorite streaming services and get alerts when your films on your watch list arrive, as if you're slowly piecing together the puzzle of your cinematic identity. And if you really want to immerse yourself in the world of film, you can become a Letterboxd patron for $49 a year. You'll be surrounding yourself with the most exclusive features and perks, connecting with fellow film enthusiasts on a deeper level. Excited by these possibilities, you navigate to the Letterboxd website, eager to sign up for a patron account. As you begin the process, you notice something about a 20% discount for listeners of the Next Reel podcast. The name immediately sparks a sense of familiarity. You might not remember much, but you know for certain that this is your favorite podcast for weekly movie conversations. You continue to fill out the registration form, entering your email address and creating a new password. But as you click to complete the process, something unexpected happens. Instead of a confirmation page for a new account, you're greeted with a message welcoming you back to Letterboxd. Suddenly, it all comes rushing back to you. You're not a new member at all. You've been a Letterboxd patron for years with a deep love for cinema that has always been part of who you are. A smile spreads across your face as you realize that even with your memory loss, your passion for film has remained constant. And now, with the added bonus of the 20% renewal discount, you can continue your cinematic journey without breaking the bank. In this moment, you understand that while you may never fully remember the details of your past, you've rediscovered something just as valuable: your love for cinema and the connections it brings. Through Letterboxd, you can continue to explore the world of film, share your thoughts and experiences with others, and build a new identity around the art form that speaks to your soul. So embrace this opportunity like you're embracing your rediscovered passion. Renew your Letterboxd Pro or Patron membership and immerse yourself once again in a world of exclusive features and insider benefits. And with that generous discount from thenextreel.com/letterboxd, you're unlocking the best kind of plot twist, one that leads to a future filled with the joy and connection that only cinema can bring. It's time to make it official and reclaim your place among the Letterboxd elite, because even if the memories of your past remain scattered, your love for film will always be the constant that guides you forward.
Okay, that was a good twist. You've been a member all along. Right then, I thought we need to go back and record one of these ads and insert it into the Tenet conversation, but do it backwards. So join True Story FM/join, and then go. Yeah, that'd be good. Okay. I don't remember what's next. Award season, Andy. How'd it do? Did it just rake in the telenovela awards?
Boy, it feels like it should have. That's certainly its place for it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if some telenovelas actually ripped the plot off of this and used it.
Sure of it.
This actually had won a nomination at the Deauville Film Festival. Wolfgang Petersen was nominated with the Critics Award, but he lost to Gus Van Sant for My Own Private Idaho. Sadly, that was it, but it still is a fun film to watch.
Gus Van Sant. I like to say that I've seen him around in Portland. I haven't. Yeah,
you haven't.
But I like to believe that we've been at the same grocery store. I'll bet he's a New Seasons guy. I bet he shops at New Seasons. My Oregon people will know what I mean.
They'll know. So will the people from Wolfman.
Hey, you're exactly right, except for New Zealand. Don't get me started. Okay. Royno. Have you listened to the show yet? I coined a new thing.
Yeah, I did. I know. You need to put that in the glossary.
You totally do. Okay. How'd you do at the box office? This is a big day for you. You get actually a job in this segment once again.
Right, I know. It's exciting to go back to Hollywood films in the era when the data is available. So
yeah.
Yeah, for Petersen's film, he had a budget of $22 million, or $51.26 million in today's dollars. The movie opened October 11th, 1991, opposite Frankie and Johnny, Ernest Scared Stupid, and the limited release of The Taking of Beverly Hills and Little Man Tate. It started off in 6th place and dropped pretty quickly from there, unfortunately, only staying in theaters for about a month. The movie went on to earn $11.5 million, or $26.8 million in today's dollars, landing with an adjusted loss per finished minute of almost $250,000. Not a box office winner for Petersen, but he was able to prove his worth with his next film, In the Line of Fire.
Wow. That's too bad.
I know.
I can get it. I mean, I understand that the movie probably didn't age well on blockbuster shelves.
Yeah, it's one of those films. I think it's you got to kind of go along with the twist and just the vibe of the film. And if you can do that, I think you're fine. But in a stretch of his films that he did, like Das Boat, Never Ending Story, Enemy Mine, Shattered, In the Line of Fire, Outbreak, Air Force One, Perfect Storm. I mean, he's making fun films.
Yeah, for sure. Did you see Frankie and Johnny? Is that one that you know about?
I've never seen it. I know the film. I just had never watched that one.
It was based on a play. I worked on this play in community theater before I left Colorado Springs, and Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune. It's a great little story, and I actually think the adaptation was really, really good. Michelle Pfeiffer and I'm Reloaded. What's his name? Scarface. Pacino. Okay. Now it's my turn, but you got to do a thing.
Well, yeah, it was a fun film. I'm glad we talked about it, and it is one that I would have fun returning to. So, all right, we'll be back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, William Castle's 1964 film Straight Jacket, starring Joan Crawford.
This is another Scared Straight. Spoiled Rotten. Yeah, that's going to be that's the follow-up to Scared Straight in the prison system is Spoiled Rotten. Okay. Psst. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Lean closer. Do you ever feel like your life is a puzzle? Like maybe even that you're the puzzle and some pieces are missing? Like you wake up one morning and you're wearing someone else's underpants, and your wife is way too interested in your DoorDash history, and your business partner keeps nervously adjusting his pageboy cap, but you can't remember why. The point is, life is full of twists, betrayals, and sometimes really bad plastic surgery. But there's one thing that you can rely on, the Next Reel's family of film podcasts. We'll help you piece together the mysteries of cinema one film at a time. Become a supporting member and unlock the world of bonus content, early access, and the sweet, sweet satisfaction of knowing you're not alone in this crazy, mixed-up world. And you don't just get those sweet bonuses from the show you're listening to right now. No way, chump! In addition to the Next Reel, you get CinemaScope, the Film Board, Movies We Like, and Sitting in the Dark. We've even got a Discord server because sometimes you just need to talk to someone who understands the sheer implausibility of a bad face day. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Jump on over to truestory.fm/join and sign up today. And slow down around those curves, all right?
3 days in someone else's underpants.
It's time, Andy. Letterboxd. Letterboxd.com/nextreel. That's where you can find our HQ page. Go over there, follow us. And what are you going to do for your rating for this movie?
This is a lot of fun. This is that zone of 3.5 star rated movies that I just have a lot of fun with, and it'd be an easy one to watch. It's not necessarily a perfect film, but it's going to be an easy rewatch. This is 3.5 for me and a heart. I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
If I did half stars, I would give it a 3.5. I don't. It's a 3 and a heart, but I mean it as much as a 3.5. That's right. I can say that.
Is that how that works?
Yeah. I don't need to say 3.5 because it rounds up.
Oh, that's true. That will round to 3.25 over on our Letterboxd account. That will round up to 3.5 and a heart. So that's where we're sitting. It's a good spot for this one. Pretty good spot kicking off this series of 3.5 and a heart. You remember you can find me over there at Soda Creek Film, and you can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So, what did you think about Shattered? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
We just went with the popular kids this time.
Yes, we did.
Because they're clever. I have a 2.5 star with a heart from Christian DeLeo, and I'll tell you the novelty in a minute. Christian says, a silly, convoluted, and erotic amnesia thriller from the golden age of the genre, the early 90s. Cars fly off cliffs with hilarious results. Legend of the screen, Bob Hoskins steals the show as a pet store owner, private investigator, and there are no shortage of lies, deception, mystery, and betrayal. There are also a ton of sick shots of glass shattering all throughout, so I would have to guess that this is one of Stone Cold Steve Austin's favorite movies, because once you hear the glass, it's your ass. And then Christian tells the whole story of the movie in emoji. So I'm not going to do it right now, but you should know that you should click on that review from Christian DeLeo and look at it, because it is the whole movie in emoji, and it's great.
It's fantastic. Well, I've got a 3 star and a heart by DNA Cinephile, who has this to say. The scene with Greta Scacchi and Tom Berenger making love while Knights in White Satin played while they were transposed onto the Pacific Ocean in a wave tunnel was our favorite part of Shattered. And we didn't talk about that clearly enough, Pete.
No.
It's an entertaining 1990s stylized psychosexual drama that is worth your time if you appreciate the genre. Absolutely.
I think what's so funny, this may be just that I watched it and was transported into something like the Zuckers would have done. Like this was a Naked Gun sequence where they're regular and the water. And then I think in the movie, the first time we get the water overlay, they come up and they're just dry and have had sex, and that's what it is. But at the end, don't they do it again and they come out wet? Doesn't it feel like they're drenched?
Probably, yeah.
I love that so much. All right. Thanks, Letterboxd.